Hey, Stead, it's our 50th episode on this platform.
That's right.
But in true too many guys fashion, our 50th episode was actually a couple of episodes ago because we've switched platforms a couple of times. So were we keeping an accurate count or
Oh yeah. Uh, you know what? No, I think we're accurate though. I think it's still 50. I was just using other means to record because our early episodes aren't on YouTube, I don't think. So I think yeah, I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure this is our 50th. It is our 50th, even on this platform. I'm pretty sure it is.
you see, it wouldn't be the too many guys soccer show if we couldn't even figure out how to count.
Yeah. Because now I'm like, I think it is. I don't know.
See, we don't even know. What else would you expect from us?
Right.
The worst. Well, we probably won't even be on for 120 minutes today, but
Yeah.
the worst, hour, 90 minutes in all of sports podcasting. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Too Many Guys soccer show, and we will be joined by some of our other colleagues as we go throughout the next 90 minutes, hour, however long we actually have to make this conversation. It's always weird when we do these this mid-international break show because there is plenty of stuff to talk about, but we're all kind of like, you know what? It's almost a little bit of vacation time. We can kind of take it easy because the games aren't coming thick and fast. There's not as much analysis of club soccer. And let's be honest, club soccer is what we really like to do. Other than tournaments, World Cup qualifying, while interesting, and we certainly have a lot to talk about, can be a little bit of a drag. But that said, there were some interesting developments. We're about a year away from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. We had the announcement that the Premier League would take a break over the tournament, which is good because I really wonder how the Premier League would have continued if they decided to continue to play games without any real players. Like, the quality of that tournament would have gone down considerably. But we have our first official, we have our first, beyond the host nations, we have our first teams qualified. We have the makings of the 10 teams that will contest the playoffs in Africa. And in certain questions, we have more, in certain situations, we have more questions than answers. Like, for one, why is San Marino allowed to participate in World Cup qualification? San Marino, who has yet to win a game in World Cup qualification and was soundly beaten today by what can only be described as England's B squad, what was left over after their demolition job of Albania last week, beat what are they, San Marinians?
There's a name. They have a name. It's like Italian something. I can't remember.
But they've got beat 10-0.
And got a red card.
And got a red card, right? And the only team that San Marino has ever beaten in a competitive match is Liechtenstein, which also begs the question, 1-0. Why are these teams allowed to qualify for the World Cup? I get it that UEFA wants to give them every opportunity, and every once in a while you have a team like Iceland or North Macedonia who put together a nice enough run. Look, North Macedonia will be in the playoffs for this, and they qualified for the Euros, and they weren't completely abject when they got to the Euros. And I want them to have the opportunity, but I do feel like UEFA really seriously has to investigate a pre-tournament, because I can't imagine what experience a country like San Marino gets from getting beat 10-0 by England.
Yeah.
On their own pitch. Like, what was the purpose of that?
Yeah. You got to look at, San Marino, Liechtenstein, Andorra, Malta, you know,
Gibraltar,
Gibraltar. Yeah, there's
some of these microstates that
it,
just don't have the population to fill out a proper roster.
no. But you got to think there's stadiums that hold more people than live in San Marino. San Marino has a
Mhm.
population of 33,000 people.
Yeah,
And
Old Trafford is twice as big on
exactly.
match day
Look, come
as
on,
San
dude.
Marino is.
They could fit in like League One stadiums. Like I think Stadium Light holds 47,000. So it's like,
So what you're telling me is that it is conceivable that England could invite every inhabitant of San Marino to watch the game in Wembley and still have a proper allocation for their own fans.
absolutely, absolutely. It's beyond ridiculous. Um, if anything, if you were a big player in UEFA, at least you could look at it as a training ground game where you can get some players some burn. But I'm sorry, they should not count these 4 goals for Harry Kane against. They just shouldn't even count them towards his total. If you looked at Ronaldo's astronomical international goal scoring statistics, I believe half of his goals come against these minnow teams, and
You can
you're
only
constantly being fed the ball against Liechtenstein. You're going to score 11 goals against
Mhm.
Liechtenstein.
They don't have it. It's just I don't understand it. I think that UEFA really needs to revisit this. And if they got it down to, what is it that they have 12? Um, if they got it down to 24 teams in the groups and then played those 8 games in 6 groups of 4 and had the top 2 make it from each group, I think that makes it a little more palatable because you know most of these groups don't they're playing 10 games 8-10 games, but of them probably 2 aren't even reasonably competitive. I just it's an extra 2 to 4 games that you have to play against opposition that the only thing that you're going to learn is bad, and the only thing that can happen is somebody get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I am all for giving smaller states the opportunity. Look at Northern Ireland, who helped Italy today.
Mm-hmm.
In Belfast, forced Italy into the playoffs, and we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about that a little bit later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But Northern Ireland again is also a team that has proven to be a little bit competitive, and if
Mm-hmm.
they had to go through a preliminary competition to get into World Cup qualifying proper, you feel as though they would be able to make it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
start using those bottom 2 groups, groups
Mm-hmm.
C and D of the Nations League, to filter out the teams that can qualify for World Cup qualifying proper.
Mm-hmm.
This way, we just don't have these ridiculous matches.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially for a group that clearly the pot was in England's favor when you have Poland, Albania, Hungary, Andorra, and San Marino in
Mhm.
your group. But England had all effectively have qualified. So it's even more of a liability where it could be a case where someone gets injured or a frustrated San Marino player just wants to haul off and just whack a guy because they're just mad they're getting shellacked every time. Do you know their ranking, their FIFA ranking is
Dead last
210.
out of 210.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I
It's
think
beyond surprising.
one of the only reasons why they're 210 out of 210 is I don't think Gibraltar has had a team long enough to qualify,
Mhm.
because they're another one. 9 games played, 3 goals scored, 40 conceded.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, they can't play Spain because of the territory. Like, no disrespect. I'm glad that Gibraltar has a national team, but and Danny Higginbotham has a place to play. But let's be honest, they don't need to be playing Turkey and the Netherlands.
No, they don't. They don't. They don't. It's I just don't see the use. I just don't see the use. If you and plus think of this, if I was a real quality player and I was from San Marino, Do you not think they're going to play for Italy?
Mhm,
They're just going to play for Italy.
mhm,
So you have no chance. You
mhm.
have no chance. If you have any player that's worth half a damn that could play at a national team level, like a really, good, strong player, and they get a call up from San Marino, and they're like, but I have a chance to play for Italy. It's not even going to be a conversation. It's not. And then if you look at the San Marino club, San Marino national team, there's a few guys that are playing in Italy, and clearly they're players who probably have an aunt who lives there or something like that. And they're managed to just say, "Oh, I'll play. Give me international exposure." And it's solely made up of amateurs from their league. They have a league in San Marino of 15 teams, which I was shocked that you can get 15 teams out of 33,000 people. And the majority of their national team is, and I looked into this league. It looks quite entertaining. I'm sure it's very fun for the locals to have this, outing to go to and players to play. I mean, I'm sure it's not that difficult to make the squad. So, but to think that they're now playing against the likes of um, Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane, it's just not really fair. It's not really fair. Like you and I can go play for one of those club teams, man.
I think the funny thing is, if you do the math, it looks like almost 1% of the population would be playing in the San Marino League someplace, figuring that they carry on average about 20 people per team. Like you could have 1% of San Marino's population plays in one of their teams.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Okay. So yeah. Um I I think one of the reasons why we like CONCACAF qualification and dislike, why there's so much malaise about other qualifications, are the amount of non-competitive games,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Europe, that have to be played, that just
Mm-hmm.
take up these international breaks. Why people get so fed up is, as we've been saying, it's just a chance for guys to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
good for some of these younger guys to be getting called in. And if you had a match round where you were playing, for instance, England was playing in Andorra and San Marino in the match round, do you think that they would call in the likes of Harry Kane and stuff like that? Or just blood in a bunch of youth players?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would totally bring in a bunch of youth players,
I would
but
bring in the fringe players and let them have
let
at
them
it.
have a
Just,
go. Yeah. I mean, I
you
just send
know,
your U21s out there.
mhm.
It's going to be probably equally as competitive.
So
I just remember, this is totally unrelated to the magnitude of the game, but US was playing Costa Rica, and US had all but qualified. I think they needed a draw. That's all they needed to qualify. And Oguchi Onyewu ripped up his knee. That game was out. And even though he hadn't sniffed the field for AC Milan, the club was furious. They were furious. And so imagine being in a similar situation where you have a player who actually is featured for your club and they're playing in a useless international club game, and they come back and they blow out a knee, or they get a high ankle sprain and they're out for 3 to 6 months. It's
the
beyond
other,
frustrating. And I would think it'd be frustrating for the player as well, because you saw what happened after that. Oguchi was almost done. And he even said, I'll play for free. Just please don't get rid of me. But he was all but done.
he was all but done, and that was what I was going to say. Like, that was the beginning of the end of what was at that point in time a very promising career
It was. It
for
really was.
Gooch.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he made his, I don't want to say it was his debut. Clearly, he had been on the team before, but when he came in and played against Italy, we kind of said, "Oh, all right."
Mm-hmm.
And you think about how much more solid the United States defense could have been if we would have
Mm-hmm.
had that, him in his prime, throughout his prime, playing for us. By the time he got to Philadelphia Union, and I think he played for barely a season there, he was just a shell of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that ACL injury um, led to subsequent injuries, which basically
Yep.
derailed his career,
Mm-hmm.
all because he was playing in this qualifier trying to get time.
Mm-hmm.
And I am with you. I love international tournaments. I just don't love the qualifying process all the way around and feel like it needs to be streamlined.
Mhm.
And, Byron Rob's about to jump on in a second, and we'll welcome him on. Um, and I'm sure he will have some thoughts on this as well. I actually kind of like the fact that we weren't subject to an initial group stage and CONCACAF qualification. We just got right to it's not even the hexagonal this time around, it's the
Mhm.
octagonal. And I felt like that was the best case because, we get the games in. And despite the fact that there are some teams down at the bottom of this qualification, they're still compelling because
Mhm.
we'll definitely get more into it, Rob and some of the other guys.
Yeah,
But
and that's the last thing I'm gonna say about these San Marino games, though, is the it's the why. We everybody knows these players are playing too many games.
mhm,
Everybody knows that the money that's involved in these and why these players are playing too many games. But that is not a moneymaker for England. It's not a moneymaker for FIFA.
it's not a money maker for anybody. I can't imagine even that. Okay, so during the NFL window this time around, ABC, who does not have a Sunday NFL game,
Mm-hmm.
chose to broadcast Spain, Sweden
Mm-hmm.
during the, kind of right from halftime of the early window to the end. So from 2 to 4 or
Mm-hmm.
2:15 to 4:15, right? They took it, or 2:45, right? So it went pretty much the entire second half, maybe the first 15 minutes of the late game. But I thought it was a really interesting move. But it's Spain, Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they would have preempted any amount of coverage, even with it was being England? Do you think that ABC or ESPN would have preempted anything? And I mean down to the professional Quidditch league to put England San Marino. And we're talking about England, one of the biggest draws in this country. Do you think they
Mm-hmm.
would have preempted any? So
No.
when they're buying the package, yeah, like San Marino and everybody's getting a bite of the pie. But I think if you could guarantee more competitive and meaningful games, the television contract would go higher because you think about it, an organization like ESPN that now has to not send, but set up broadcast crews for all of these games because of the contract that stipulates that they have to show
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And even less interesting than a San Marino England game, they had to broadcast, which means they had to produce and comment. Now, my guess is they did not do this from either location, that they did it from the studio,
Mm-hmm.
but they had to produce and broadcast a matchup in between Andorra and San Marino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
who over? I know Chelsea Mike loves him some lower league football, but I can't even imagine that he's necessarily watching it.
This is beneath lower league football. I'm sorry. It's
I want to say that even all the broadcasting partners would be in agreement with dropping some of these games because it's costing them money. They
mm-hmm.
can't sell advertising for these games.
Mm-mm.
You know, how many people were tuning in to watch Malta play Cyprus
Most people don't even know where Malta is.
or Faroe Islands in Moldova?
Right. Faroe
Like,
Islands is another one. I'm like, it's pretty soon Isle of Man's going to have a team.
yeah.
And
And all their best players play for
England.
England. So, yay. All right. Looking very
They'll
festive
play
as
for
ever.
Wales before they play for them, you
And
know.
yeah, looking very festive. Joining us to celebrate the Dose Serum, and we'll definitely get on to that in a little bit, is Rob. But Rob, we're talking about useless qualifiers and why they exist. Like, should UEFA have a pre-qualifying round to filter out teams like San Marino, Andorra, the Faroe Islands, Liechtenstein, where they just really don't have a chance of being competitive?
I mean, I I enjoy it because after the World Cup and qualifiers start again, especially for the Euros, it's like a blank slate, right? So everybody gets like a fresh start. Is it going to be difficult for the San Marinos, the Gibraltars, the Faroe Islands of the world? Yes, it will be very hard, but like everybody gets the same shot, and so I can understand how UEFA does their qualifiers because there are just so many teams and associations in UEFA. Maybe the CONCACAF model would work, where they break them out a little bit, and they sort of do that in a sense, but it's not the same. But I can it is tough for San Marino because they just don't have a population. Why they're in a federation is beyond me. There's so little of them, and Gibraltar got in, I think, 2013 or something like that. They're one of the more recent ones. They're actually smaller than San Marino. So
But
yeah,
this is all, I mean, but the fact that these small countries have federations means that they also have votes, right? And San Marino's vote for UEFA, for presidency, for where the World Cup goes, counts as much as England's does.
very
And,
much so.
and one of the reasons why UEFA is able to have a disproportionate number of teams in the World Cup is because they have these small federations that have votes, right? And that's how they. I don't. I don't. And I've never thought that it was fair that UEFA gets 12 spots, but Africa only gets 5, and Asia, I think, gets 4 or 5 as well. 3.
They get 3. They get
Yeah.
3 plus, and then the playoff. I think that's all they get.
And
Yeah.
Oceania doesn't even get anything. They get half.
Oceania gets 0 to 1.
Yeah.
They get 0 to 1.
1.
Yeah,
And
they have to win a playoff.
They lost their spot when Australia joined Asia, because at that point in time, Australia, it was just Australia and everybody else. But it's it's hard when you look at, like, New Zealand is automatically going to would be the favorites to qualify if they could get there, but they're going to have a playoff, and 9 times out of 10 it's against like somebody from CONMEBOL.
And that was Peru the last time. And which, funny enough, the first leg, it was a draw in New Zealand, which was like shocking. I was nervous, a nervous wreck as a Peruvian. I was like, oh my God, we can't score against New Zealand. I mean, I know we're playing on the road, but then, when the second leg back in Lima came, then they scored 2. But yeah, no, it's tough for them because any place in South, that's a flight. That's a huge flight. Like, imagine. I mean, I know it's the same for the South American clubs, but our teams, but that is an insane flight because I believe New Zealand normally hosts the first leg, and then the second leg will be somewhere in South America. Can you imagine that? It's insanity.
And it's played over the same window, so you're talking about flying for something like a 24-hour flight to turn around and play a day or 2 later. Now, I understand they're not flying commercial when they do that. Like, you got to believe that even Peru could get anybody could get a chartered flight down there, but that's a lot.
Yeah, well, just the trip in itself, man. It doesn't matter how comfortable it is. You're still flying. Flying is tough. It's tough.
You're flying like into the past or something. What is it, like the Dateline or whatever? Like, that's crazy.
You're taking a flight to tomorrow.
Yeah, pretty much. Marty McFly over here.
My wife likes to tell the story about how she was flying to Guam, and she had a bunch of different stops, but every time she stopped, it was 8 o'clock.
Yep.
She's like, how have I been traveling for 24 hours, but it's still 8 p.m.?
That's right. Yeah.
So we did say we were going to talk a little bit about African Cup, African qualifying. I was hoping to have El Hadji on. He spent some time down in Senegal recently. Our good friend El Hadji Fall. I did catch up with him, but apparently he was unable to make it. So we'll try and get him back on at some point in the future to give us an update. Especially want to get his feelings on how this team is being received in Senegal, because I believe, and I think the stats bear it out, that they are the best team in Africa right now. They had a really fun game on, I believe it was on Thursday, right? They were playing Togo, who are second in the group, in Togo, and Togo was up 1-0, and it was not a game that Senegal needed. Right, they had already qualified for the playoffs, and they were playing in a torrential rainstorm for quite a bit, and they kept going, and they ended up drawing the game. It was their only draw of this qualifying round on a very, very, very late chip to get it. But you could see, like Ali Cisse, like it just, we are going to keep going at this, because I think he and that team are still a little bit scarred by what happened in 2018 when they lost out on fair play to Japan.
Rules,
to Japan. But it was very interesting game. And then apparently it all went down yesterday in South Africa in their game against Ghana. Ghana was awarded a late penalty that gave them the 1-0 victory. But South Africa has filed a formal complaint with FIFA saying that they believe there was some sort of referee malfeasance because they think the call was wrong. And they're asking for the game to be replayed, which there is actually a precedence, because in the 2008 qualification for the 2018 World Cup, South Africa played Senegal, and South Africa won 2-1. But it was later revealed that there were some improprieties, that the ref had taken bribes to allow goals to be scored, so made some dubious decisions to allow more goals so that the bettors could get the over. So the game had to be replayed. Senegal won 2-0. They qualified, and South Africa didn't.
But all right, so I'm seeing here that the penalty was awarded in the 33rd minute. Is that correct?
I thought it was later, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia, blah blah blah. You know. Whatever,
Yeah,
but,
I have 33rd minute too.
33rd,
yeah.
whatever. That was eventually deciding one, but they said that they were denied several opportunities, so they're playing the game under protest. We don't know what will actually become of this. I guess it becomes on South Africa to prove that the ref was somehow negligent or being bribed during this.
That's going to be a difficult one, though.
I have multiple emotions about this. Number one, it's a shame that this just seems to be the running gag, because it's so easy to write this off as, oh, well, it's Africa, and we know that CAF doesn't have their stuff together, and this is why you don't need more than 5 teams from Africa, because they can't even put together a legit qualifying tournament. And I think that narrative is a little bit ridiculous. And there have been some really good and really interesting games. And I'd also like to point out that you have teams like Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, despite everything that's going on there and the regimes and stuff like that, I get that, geopolitical stuff, but Democratic Republic of Congo has been making a come up recently, and now they're on to the playoffs, right? Along with, Ghana, Senegal, Morocco uh, and Mali, right?
Mhm.
I think we still need to find out what's going on. But
There's some drama. There's some drama when you look at
hey, look,
with Equatorial Guinea has never had a qualifying run like this, and Tunisia
Mhm.
has qualified on multiple occasions, and they're a relatively strong side, especially the North African teams tend to play well. So we'll see what happens there. Algeria, you would expect. Burkina Faso, again, even with their their political situation, they've had relatively competitive football teams over the past probably 10 years or so. But you would expect Algeria to go ahead and seal that out. But
well,
we all know the big is Group D, Ivory Coast, Cameroon. I mean,
again, you look at
they should never
Nigeria.
be in the same group. That's just
Yeah,
me, but they should never be in the same group.
Nigeria. Well, that's one of the other things that I don't like. Is they don't seed it really
Yeah. And
well.
right. And they do. They need to seed a lot better. A lot better. You have Mali, Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda. I mean, seriously, like you could trade Malawi and Ivory Coast,
Yeah, I think they need to do a better job of seeding this thing so that you don't run the risk of Ivory Coast and Cameroon cannibalizing each other.
Yeah.
But then you look at Nigeria is not guaranteed to be through. We
No.
suspect that they will, but their game tomorrow is the decider with Cape Verde.
Mm-hmm.
The same with you'd have to fancy Tunisia to beat Zambia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Zambia finished. They got to a final for the Cup of Nations once. That's kind of their probably their big thing that they've done recently.
But the other one, Ivory Coast and Cameroon tomorrow as well. And
yeah, that's going to be the game.
They won 1 point separating them, and they're tied on goal differential. So
that's the game. That's the game.
I think I'm gonna watch that before I get ready to go down and watch the USA play Jamaica, which we will talk about. We're joined by and we are joined by another good friend of ours, probably one of the happiest guys in the room, a proud Scotsman, who not only saw his team clinch around a berth in the playoffs, but score multiple goals in consecutive games and take down Denmark today. Cam, if you are as a member of the Tartan Army, life is good right now.
Oh yeah, today was a big one. Going into, I think I said a couple weeks ago that I didn't have super high hopes, but today, watching the football I saw today, it was like a completely different team. I love watching Scotland play, but today I was very proud to see the team out there playing. I literally don't think I could pick from the lineup a single person who I would say didn't perform well today. I mean, from everyone from Gordon to Armstrong to everyone. It was absolutely fantastic, I thought.
So this was an important win. This guarantees that they will be seeded. And that means that they will avoid the other top teams. And there are some tough ones. They can hopefully get away with avoiding the likes of Portugal, Sweden, and Italy in the playoff rounds, and maybe get a more favorable matchup against a team like North Macedonia. So this is as close as the Scots have come to qualifying for a World Cup since their last appearance in 1998.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think you said it right there. I think today's win was really important in terms of getting seeded. As you say, trying to avoid some of those bigger teams that are in this group. We're looking for someone like a Northern Macedonia, as you said, or even a Finland to go against. So I think this puts us in a really good spot at Hampton come the next set of games.
So moving on, qualification for UEFA has 1 day left, right? And this goes out to everybody. It's been an interesting ride. Looking down again, some interesting teams that have dropped into the playoffs. Probably no one had a more disappointing, as good as Scotland's rounds of qualifying was for them. I gotta believe and G's not here to talk about it, but man, if you're Italy right now, that hurts. They went in with an opportunity to win their group at home and could only muster a draw with Switzerland. And they go to Belfast today and they can only muster a 0-0 draw with Northern Ireland in a game that, to be honest, Northern Ireland probably should have won. Jorginho had a chance at the death to win it with a penalty kick. I think it was the right call given the penalty. I thought it was foolish on the Swiss player to run over the Italian forward like he did. He skies it, and it's another trip to the playoffs. Gentlemen, the wheels have come off a little bit for Italy recently after that long unbeaten run. They only have one win in their last 5 competitive matches. Rob, what's going on with them?
I don't know. I'm clueless. I don't. I have no words. I really don't. I this whole qualification process has been dumbfounded. So I don't. You have as much knowledge about this than I do, because I'm just shrugging. That's my reaction. Just a shrug. This is the beautiful game. You know, you can't predict anything. You know, teams you expect to do well don't think teams that you expect to be garbage are not, to surprise you. And then you have beautiful stories like Scotland, you know. So I just can explain anything that happens in this whole complex tournament. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out the seeding process. I'm still like learning the rules over here. Help me out. Maybe Cam knows.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the process is so utterly confusing. I spent about an hour today looking at it, and I walked away with, well, I know they're getting seeded, and there's teams that are seeded and unseeded, and there seems to be like multiple different paths and things like that. It's wild whoever set this tournament up. It really is.
Well, it goes back to what we thought we were talking about at the top of the show, Cam, was the need for them to put in some sort of pre-qualifying. And we're going to welcome in, before we go there, we want to welcome in our good friend, Carlos, who's joining us. He's going to talk about Spain and Zlatan's return after his retirement, which was Zlatan in so many ways, but not for all the reasons why we wanted it to be. He didn't start, he came on, and his heat map was basically one straight line as he took a red card and then quickly left. But yes, we were talking Cam and Los and Rob about the fact that, you know, I believe that there needs to be a streamlining of the UEFA qualification. Stead agrees with me that some of these teams that are just non-competitive, I don't understand the benefits of having this game, and they end up creating this more convoluted tournament. I'm not saying that, you know, San Marino and Liechtenstein and some of these smaller micro countries shouldn't get a shot to qualify, right? They should just be, you know, I don't think they should just be eliminated straight off the bat. I do believe that there should be, like there is in Africa, like there is in the United States, a preliminary round where we can get down and then have a proper qualification tournament with 24 teams, seeded 1 through 24 in 4 pots, 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like there would be in the Champions League. You seed them, and then the top 2 teams in each group go through to the World Cup, and the other 2 countries, thanks for playing, have a good one. But because that sounds reasonable, I believe that is exactly why UEFA won't do it. Because why take the reasonable option when the absurd and obtuse is available? So, Lois, how you doing this evening?
That buildup is sort of what the Americas do, and if the Americas do it, well, FIFA wants nothing to do with it. So that's just the way it is. So I will say this: that back in the mid 70s, late 70s, my father and I took a referee course, introductory referee course, and his idea was like, you know what they need to do? They need to stop this passing back to the keeper. You know, because they pass back to the keeper and pick it up. They can bounce the ball, hold on to it. He puts it on the ground, picks it back up. He can take 4 steps with it as long as he puts it on the ground. He says, that's nonsense. You know what they should do? They should give him 5 seconds. 5 seconds, get rid of that ball. And that's it. That's what they should do. Well, my dad was way ahead of the curve there. So that's what they do now. And it moves the game a little bit better. Let the keeper move it as much as he wants, drop it on the ground, carry it, whatever, but he's got 5 seconds to get rid of it. Actually 6, right? They say 6 because 5 is American. So so they give him 6 seconds. But anyway, my dad was talking about that back in the 70s. So anyway, the game yesterday between Spain and Sweden. Spain qualified. They only needed the point to get and qualify. Sweden needed to win to qualify at this stage. And avoid the playoff thing. But here's the thing that I found interesting. The game was pretty much a dead heat, if not in Sweden's favor for much of the game. And when they decided to take out Forsberg, that's when it changed for Sweden, because he was really the driving force up front. And when it was like when they took him out, I'm like, oh, thank God, maybe we could do something now. You know, because I thought he was that big a presence. But when they subbed him out, and then the Spaniards brought in a Murata, which of course, when you brought in Murata, I'm like, well, you know, his Euro Cup was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't fantastic. But, he rode Pine for all the entire game till the, like last 15, 20 minutes. But he came on and he was in the right place at the right time. And when you have a ball in front of you, and you're the striker, and you got a keeper who is looking to make a play and goes to ground, well, it's easy just to pop it up over him, and boom, you got yourself a goal. So he became the hero of Spain, scoring a rather easy goal. As far as strikers are concerned, that was a rather easy goal to score. He should have scored that goal, no doubt about it. But I think the game hinged on the fact that Forsberg got subbed out. Ibrahimovic was no factor at all. And no red cards yesterday's.
Oh, I thought he got suspended. I thought he picked up a yellow. Did he pick? I thought he got suspended.
He got a yellow. He got a yellow, which means he might be suspended for the next match. But I'm not sure. I have to check that. But he did get a yellow. But I mean, it was of no consequence at that point.
But so I was saying, so maybe you can answer this question. They were showing the game on, we talked about this earlier as well. And you are a guy who, we know your affinity for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How'd you handle it yesterday with the fact that Sweden was on at the same time as the Bucs were playing the Washington football team?
Well, my priorities are the international game. So I kept an eye on the Twitter and the NFL.com and saw that Brady, someone started in the league we're playing in, somebody started Brady, and he was at like minus 1.72 points early on. And I'm like, oh, what the heck's going on here? And I realized he had an interception, wasn't doing well. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a good day. So I'm like, I'm glad I'm not watching that game.
Oh, so that's what it was. You weren't double screening it. You had an easy out because the game wasn't that good.
Yeah, the double screening thing, I've done it before. I wasn't into it yesterday. I just wanted to watch the Spain, Sweden. As a matter of fact, it was kind of a surprise. My wife and I were just, cleaning up some of the backyard and all that and putting debris up so she can go ahead and start a fire later on in the evening. And I came in and she's like, where'd you go? And I had the TV on and the teams are lining up. She goes, oh, I didn't know there was a game. Who's playing? I said, Spain. She goes, oh, okay. All right. So she called up my son, says, I'm going to be gaming in the other room. She's a gamer. So she started gaming for a couple hours and I watched the game. It was beautiful. It was great.
So Spain goes through.
Rob, I dig the hat, man.
Yes, Rob, we are celebrating our 50th show, and Rob decided to come out in costume because, and I can't even describe this, like USA Soccer Dr. Seuss hat that he's wearing.
It is like what is Uncle Sam?
Yeah,
it's the Uncle Sam hat.
Well, if Dr. Seuss and Betsy Ross had a kid, that would be the hat they would wear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It is definitely a interesting look to go along with the Bomb Pop jersey, one of everybody's favorite. And we can talk about the fact that, you know, all these years we still don't have decent kit. That was not one of my favorites, but I can see where people would like it. Anyway, did you have any other thoughts on UEFA qualification, Lowe's?
Well, I thought it was kind of early for teams to qualify, and then I realized, because we still got another year and a half before the games actually. Well,
just a year.
About a year now. Yeah, we got a year before the games start. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess there's no qualifiers in the spring. And then I found out there's a playoff, and I'm like, what? There's a playoff? Oh, okay. That's new. So
whatever. Don't tell the French, don't tell the Italians that was the round they lost in last year.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, and we had this discussion too, because the Italians are back in that playoff thing again, right? Mm-hmm. So now if they lose again and don't qualify again, that's like an interesting championship sandwich when you think about it. They didn't qualify for the World Cup here, don't qualify for the World Cup here, but they won the Euros in between. Championship sandwich.
Rob, we know that the defending champions for CONCACAF last time around, the US did not qualify for the last World Cup.
That's correct.
The defending champions for CONMEBOL, Chile, who were the two-time defending champions at that time, did not qualify. You know, I think those were the only two teams. Rob, you had mentioned Europe, but
it was from the African Cup of Nations.
Oh, it was the African Cup of Nations?
Yeah, they didn't qualify. I think it was Cameroon. It might have been Cameroon.
Oh, okay. Cameroon won the last AFCON Cup and did not qualify.
Exactly. So it was just a cluster. Or like, you know, if usually when you win your Confederations, you know, highlight tournament, that means you're pretty darn good, and you should make it to the big dance. And
sometimes it's weird though.
For 3 times.
Sometimes it's weird though, because I know, like, for instance, Egypt has dominated the African Cup of Nations. They've won it 5 times, by far and away the most. But when it comes to actually qualifying for the World Cup and then advancing within the World Cup, they're actually pretty poor at it. Whereas Nigeria have struggled to win the African Cup of Nations, but are like serial qualifiers for the World Cup. Somehow it's like the differing tournaments benefit them in different ways. We'll see, though, if the defending European champions in Italy can get through the playoffs. It's a round that they would have nightmares about. And given how poor this round of fixtures went for them, we've all mentioned already, you know, maybe they're feeling some footsteps. Maybe they're feeling a little bit shaky. The other big team that didn't qualify from Europe for the other noteworthy team that didn't qualify for Europe for the 2018 World Cup was the Netherlands. But right. They have they secured their spot. They look to be through as direct qualifiers as well. As we wrap up, though, I am going to ask, you know, we talked about the great story that Scotland is in the making it into the playoffs. Congratulations again, Cam. Were there any other surprises that jumped out to you guys as far as teams that qualified that you thought weren't up for the playoffs or directly, or teams that didn't qualify that you thought might?
Surprises? I mean, obvious. Serbia and Portugal. That's the biggest surprise. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo's team didn't qualify, not in this go round. They're in the playoff round, but Serbia, they're in. And that was, in fact, I was talking with one of my students is from Senegal, and I actually talked to him about how, they and Togo tied, and actually Senegal was actually lucky to get the equalizer late in the game. But and he was like, "Oh, you watched that game?" I said, "No, but I kept up with it, what was happening." So he says, "Well, yeah." I said, "Did you know that Portugal lost to Serbia?" He goes, "What?" And he looks at another kid who's a big fan of Cristiano Ronaldo. He says, "Hey, Cristiano Ronaldo lost yesterday." Yeah, it's not just him. The whole Portuguese team did, but that's okay. Yeah, that was a big surprise. I did not expect that to happen. And obviously, neither did Portugal. So, but, it is what it is. You got to win the games on the field. You can't win them on paper.
Any surprises for you, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to say that was the one I was going to bring up. I mean, that late goal by Serbia. I mean, I won't lie, it was fantastic to see the Serbian team celebrating, just getting some success like that. I always enjoy it when these kind of smaller teams get into the World Cup. Obviously I have an affinity with that, but just seeing that late goal and just seeing the Portuguese team just suddenly realize what's just happened. Obviously feel bad for them, but I think better for Serbia to have made it into the World Cup. I think they're going to be exciting to watch because I think they're going to be pulling really, really hard.
How about you, Rob? Anything stand out as a surprise?
I have two of them. Number one, the darling from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even Iceland, did not do well at all. I thought they would be in the playoff round, but North Macedonia just won. They took points, and Iceland just did not do well at all. And so I'm a little shocked by them. It looks like the Iceland story is done, or at least paused for now. And then the other one, which is interesting, because I thought they would do better, but they still qualified for the playoff by the way of the Nations League, which is Austria. Austria is in fourth in their group. They're below Israel, and because they did so well in their Nations League group, they advanced to the playoff. So it's pandemonium over there. So I think Austria has really good players, Savitzer and David Alaba, for example, and Jan. And so I think they would do. I thought they would do really good, and they had the talent to do it, but the very fact that they did not do well in the group, maybe they didn't care because they just knew they were going to the playoff anyways. Who knows? But I thought they would have the talent enough to really try to compete with Denmark for the top spot, but it looks like not.
Iceland back in the Euros with 2016 when they came on as everyone's darlings, and they were fun to watch, and the fans were fantastic. It's a good fan base. But when you saw what happened at this last Euros, I'm like,
I think
they had tailed off. It's not the same Icelandic team we saw 4 years ago, and that's the nature of the sport, though. You got to keep bringing up players that are that and build them and get them up to the level you need them to be. And it was a nice little flash in the pan for Iceland back a few years ago. It seems to have dimmed, though, like Rob was saying.
I think exactly that. It was a great story while it lasted. The smallest country to ever qualify for the World Cups in terms of population, but it just wasn't sustainable in the long run. I was impressed by Albania, who managed to hang around until almost the final round of fixtures. They were in there with a shot at making the playoffs. Norway, it started off so good for them, but then without Erling Haaland in there to knock goals in, it's just their scoring is kind of dried up. They have a very important matchup coming up with the group leaders in the Netherlands, who have already qualified directly or I'm sorry, they have a matchup with the Netherlands, who look to be qualified in first place, but a loss would drop them down. So they're going to try and win that. This could play into Turkey's hands, who are sitting second on goal difference right now, if and have a easier matchup in their last round of fixtures. All right, so we're going to take a turn back across the Atlantic and talk about the big boy, Dulce Sarah. Yet again, and Cam's going to drop off. Our happy friend, good to see you. We'll have you back next week to talk some more club football as we reintroduce Celtic and the Premier League. So enjoy your week, Cam. Once again, congratulations on the Scots and having and making the playoffs, the closest that they have come in a lifetime.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good night, gentlemen.
So,
Night.
A big game in Cincinnati on Friday evening. Once again, the U.S. drags Mexico to Ohio. Once again, they emerge 2-0 victors. Right. Courtesy of second half goals, Christian Pulisic, and I believe it was Weston McKennie, right, Rob?
Correct.
With the goals there. A late red card to Miles Robinson, which will see him ruled out for the game, as well as Weston McKennie, who picked up a yellow card and will be suspended for this game against Jamaica. So before we talk about what's going to happen tomorrow down in the Caribbean, let's talk about what happened on Friday. We had our doubts, gentlemen, about Greg Berhalter and his ability to coach the U.S. men's national team. And
You said had.
We definitely had a lot of questions. I was going to ask a question, Los, and I guess I'll let you start.
Well, I have.
Do you still have them after this? Because this is the first time in who knows how long that the U.S. has beaten Mexico 3 times in a calendar year in competitive matches, and they have not conceded a goal in any of them.
Are you ready for this? The last time something like this happened in the same calendar year was the year before my dad was born. Okay, so we're talking a long time ago. 1937, I think is what I heard. Yeah. Berhalter, I don't know. I think we got a good result, but let me tell you what, the game was all kind of tit for tat at the beginning, and for like the first 3 quarters of the game, it was that way. But it's when they brought in Christian Pulisic, that was the difference, I think, for the U.S. That was because he went out there and started making things happen. You could see markedly on the field, things were moving differently. Guys were finding open space, they're finding players in open space, and they're making solid passes, and it's just happening. It's just getting there. So eventually, you thought something might happen. Something did happen, and then we scored another goal late to seal the deal. But yeah, I'm still not convinced that Berhalter's the guy, but you know what? He's the guy we got right now. So, and everyone's going to be like, well, he won against Mexico, so he's still got his job. Okay, yeah, I guess so. I mean, not everyone can be Norwich City where you win your match and then sack your coach. So, so there's that.
Rob, you feeling any more comfortable with Berhalter as manager? And you pointed out that they did win the game. 3-2 in the Nations League. I thought it was another 1-0.
So, I'm sorry, Lois, I'm going to have to disagree with you. He has earned our respect. I'm sorry. He has earned it enough with, the trash talking of Berhalter. He's done it. He got everything we wanted him to do, right? It took him a while to get here, but he's beaten Mexico in 2 crazy environment games, even though they were on U.S. soil. When the U.S. was clearly outnumbered at the fan base, where it was hostile, especially in Denver. It got crazy in Vegas, and I was there, I saw it. And then he's won in probably the most important of the 3 matchups, which is World Cup qualifying. I know it's at home, and I know it was a pro-U.S. crowd, but they played much better than than any other game we have seen, not only from Berhalter, but probably the last few managers, few coaches. They played with confidence. They played with possession. They didn't just chuck the ball down the field all the time. They didn't play scared. They played their game that Berhalter promised us when he first got the job. He said, "We're going to be a possession-based team. We want to have the ball, and we want to move the ball around." And while they did not win the possession battle because it was 49-51. The U.S. had a lot more possession than normally do against Mexico. Mexico usually controls the game, and no minute in time did you see the Mexico really have confidence in themselves. Even though when they had the ball, sometimes they showed no display of confidence that they were going to do something with the ball. The U.S. definitely did. They were much more dangerous. Even though Mexico had a couple chances in the first half, the U.S. looked more dangerous because they were getting crosses in. They just weren't converting them. They were a little bit sloppy in the midfield in the first half. Second half, a totally different story. And Mexico had no answers. The U.S. just pulled out Pulisic from the bench, and then who did Mexico have? They had nobody out there. Chucky Lozano, was had one good chance, and that was it. Raul Jimenez, or Jimenez, as a Latino call him, was invincible. All this talk about like, we can't wait for him to come back after his head injury. He's going to do something for Mexico. Invincible. Walker Zimmerman, who plays for Nashville, just held him in check all match, and this was beautiful. I mean, the question is now, Berhalter passed the test. He beat Mexico, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and in the World Cup qualifying. Can they play like this in the Caribbean? Can they play like this in the Azteca? That is the next test. But he has passed every test, and he has earned our confidence. He has earned our trust, and I will not stand for more Berhalter, hatred. He's earned it. He's done everything for us. And look, now the U.S. is sitting pretty. They're on top of the table, and they're looking good. And also, just not only today, but for the foreseeable future, look at that lineup that the U.S. had. All of them kids. Who does Mexico have coming up that are going to be that walk-off factor? Those players that are playing for big clubs that are contributing. They really don't have the factory. They're not churning them out like we are. And all those kids, they're all young. Adams, Pulisic, Pepe, who's only 18. All those kids in Weah, 1920. McKinney in early 20s. All those guys. They're growing up together, and they're gonna be here for a while. And then what? The factory's still churning them out. It's still churning them out, and it's gonna be beautiful. I can't wait. I can't wait for Jamaica, and I can't wait for the next qualifier round.
That's the thing, Jamaica.
We'll get into the Jamaica game in a second, right? I want to talk about this game before we move on and talk about what they may or may not do when they get down to Kingston. Instead, you're going to be the tiebreaker on this one. Are you feeling better, worse, or the same about Berhalter now after he beat Mexico for the 3rd time in 2021?
I think I gotta go with Los on this one. I'm not 100% sold on Berhalter yet. I will say this is probably the first time I've seen the players look like they're doing what he wants them to do. So that is positive. But just as we saw this weekend with the Washington football team beating Tampa Bay, everybody gets a one-off. Sometimes they get it happens twice, it happens 3 times. For me, the jury is still out, because what does concern me is I think the U.S., because of our recent form in these tournaments, qualifying for the World Cup will suddenly be seen as a goal, and just qualifying will be something that will be considered good enough. And I don't want that to be the case, and that's what worries me as the team moves forward under Berhalter. So, I think eventually, if this team is turning out talent the way they appear to be, we need a manager that's not completely in love with MLS. I just think that that's not the best avenue for the U.S. going forward. We're seeing our best players at a very young age playing for European teams And I think it's best to have a manager that has more of a footing and more of an ability to watch players across the pond than it would be locally. I think Berhalter would be a great number 2 for an incoming coach. And you can keep your eye on MLS because that's what you love, and have somebody who's higher up than him at least say, stop putting Gyasi Zardes on the squad. So
well, there was no Gyasi Zardes this
that's
time
true.
around.
And you
He's
know,
hurt,
and I
but-
have no and I appreciate what he's done for the US team. I appreciate Zardes as an MLS player. But I think that if the US wants to take the next step, they have to consider leaving those players behind.
Well, all right. So let me just be clear instead. 14 of the players who are on his roster play in Europe or don't.
I
play in
understand
MLS.
that. I understand
I'm
that.
just-
But
I'm just saying.
But
and-
I'm not
and
going. But
look
I'm
at the
not going to
lineup.
take these last couple of games as an indication of what we've seen. And Mike and I talked a lot about this previously about, you know, the I'll say the overestimating of the quality of play you get in MLS.
I find it interesting, though, that when he came out with this lineup, there are certainly guys that I would like to see who are European-based, playing not necessarily in the top leagues, that I think should have gotten a call in. Rob, you pointed out Walker Zimmerman. I thought he was great. I think Miles Robinson has been a good addition. I would have liked to have seen Cameron Carter-Vickers make this team, or Chris Richards. I know Chris Richards has been around the setup, but somebody like Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's been getting really quality minutes but seems to have fallen off, I would have liked to have seen maybe some of that in there. I did find it interesting that Berhalter was willing to give the chop to some players who, like, he had seen enough. There was no Josh Sargent this time around. There is no Jordan Sebachu.
Yeah,
we had talked.
That's a year. That's a euro that can go, Rob. I'll give you that. That's definitely a euro that can go.
We talked amongst ourselves, mainly led by me, and I will be the one to admit this. I was wondering whether or not I was wondering about the decision to bring Tim Weah, who has been there or thereabouts to set up when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy fully in a while. He hasn't exactly been getting a lot of playing time over the course of the past couple of years. And I was wondering whether or not he was surviving as much on anything that he was on capability as, you know, the fact that he's George Weah's son, and ergo he should be good. But I know that it was Pulisic who had the goal, and Los, you brought up the fact that, you know, Pulisic had the goal, and when Pulisic came on, a lot of things started to move and look different. I thought Tim Weah had a really great game, right?
Me too.
He was thereabouts, and I would have to imagine, you know, he would get the start. I thought that he gave them some lineup flexibility and his ability to play both wing and as an auxiliary forward. That was on paper, it looked like a 4-3-3. It could have, and maybe should have been, a 4-2-3-1 diamond. We got our first look at the MMA midfield, really, in a competitive match. And I'm also going to say that I thought that was good. Like, I was surprised at how much of the game McKinney, Musa, and Adams were able to control through the midfield. I did not feel like they were getting run over at any point in the game, bypassed. I thought that they really held up well against a strong Mexican midfield and attack as well. So while I'm not going to say that I am completely over all of my doubts about Berhalter, I will say I feel like on this day and in this matchup, he's gotten his tactics right. He got his lineup right. He got his tactics right. Even though he knew he wasn't going to use Pulisic for more than about 30 minutes, maybe 45 at the most. He had an idea of, you know, we could start him and then sub him at halftime, or we could let him run around for 45 minutes, maybe get some more tired minds and bodies, then put him in and let him do his thing and see what it's like when he's fresh and running up against tiring defenders. And it worked, right? It worked well. But all three of you have brought up this fact. It's not done yet, right? And we have seen this before with this team after an emotional win against a South or Central American team having to go to the Caribbean.
Continue.
And drop the ball. And
drop
lose
the ball.
And drop the ball, right? Yeah, they've got a game at 5:00 tomorrow in Jamaica. It is a Jamaican team that has a lot of talent, or potentially a lot of talent, and may not have necessarily played up to their full potential because of COVID holdouts and things like that. But you're looking at a team that can call on the likes of Mikel Antonio, who we've talked about for West Ham, Leon Bailey, the Villa winger. They've got some talent in Ravel Morrison, who I guess whose career has not tracked the way that we ever thought it would, but still has proven capable, right? Are we living in, we've been burnt before, so we're not going to get optimistic, and ergo we see this as a potential banana peel game? Or, are we being overly wary of the threat that Jamaica hold? Because again, their performances have not necessarily indicated to us that we should hold them in the esteem that we should. We just believe that we should. So,
well, we beat them 2-0, but then they've won and drew twice since we beat them. So who knows? So maybe
beat them. We beat an understrength Jamaica team that was not allowed its full complement of players yet. This is the closest that they've come to being the team that we expected them to go into qualifying. I definitely agree with you, Los. I could see this being an easy banana peel game, right? I am not at all confident about going down to the Caribbean and playing Jamaica right now.
Well, without having the same dire consequences as Serbia, Portugal, this definitely could be an issue here. We might come out with Jamaica on top after at 7:00 tomorrow night. We might, that could be the result, but it really depends. We're on this 2-0 high right now, and are we going to fall flat and not play as well as we can against the team in Jamaica? So that remains to be seen. But that's again, you can't play the game on paper. Serbia, Portugal told us that. So you got to go out there on the field. You got to play the game as it's supposed to be played, and that's where you win it.
And right on time, we're joined by our good friend Chelsea Mike. I'm sure to jump in and give his congratulations to his guy Christian Pulisic.
He's got the jersey there. He's got the jersey.
The local Pennsylvania lad and Chelsea player. And also we're going to get his insights on what he feels, how he feels about the game tomorrow. So welcome, Mike. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. I don't know. It's like, the whole time we're nervous, we're chewing our fingers, and we're, shivering, just waiting. And then we beat Mexico. And now it's like, yeah, we're okay. We're all right. And yes, no, you're right. What you're saying, I agree with you completely. Like, they're definitely a trap game. I mean, it's the kind of thing where you come off that high of beating your biggest rival. And I mean, to me as a fan, like I said, it was just relief. It's like, yeah, hey, we're okay here. We're probably going to be in the World Cup. But, it's more than just meeting Mexico that gets you to the World Cup. But it's smiles, your smiles are happy. Like, let's live in the joy we've got with like 18 hours left before we have to worry again.
All right, Rob, how you feeling about this game tomorrow?
I feel good, and for a couple reasons. Number one, this is a 2-game window, not a 3-game window. So because of that, I think we'll see very little rotation. The squad is very young. Zach Steffen will be in goal again. That's been determined, and I think Pulisic will start this match. And you will see the couple of replacements. You'll probably see Chris Richards in for Miles Robinson, and you'll see either Kellen Acosta or Gianluca Busio in for Weston McKennie, and either one would work. So because of the 2-game window, I think there's going to be less rotation. And I think one of the biggest problems the U.S. had is they had to really rotate the squads out in the 3-game window, and they're really effective with the chemistry. Now you're probably going to see, 7 of the 11 players all start again, which is going to be crucial. So I think they'll do well. It's going to be a different field. There's been reports already that the field is a little bit stickier, so it's not slick. The game over in Cincinnati was, partially because the conditions are better, but also because it was raining then as well. So the ball really moved. So here, it looks like, I think Jamaica's going to do, I think they're going to do well. They're going to really frustrate the U.S. because they're probably playing on a 4-4-2 block. And they'll have their chances, but I just think the U.S. is gonna pull it out. It's gonna be tough for them. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a 2-1 victory. And I think partially because Mikel Antonio. I think he's a really good player, and him and Leon Bailey together are going to do well. And look for Blake, the keeper, to make some crazy saves, because he's done it. He's a really good keeper. And so I expect a close game, but I also expect 3 points from the U.S. and a little bit closer into Qatar.
All right,
I think what he was saying, Andre Blake. I think if Andre Blake was the kind of guy who came up now, he would have seen more European opportunities than he did. But he's been, he is a Philadelphia Union legend, and I don't know. Right now, there's an argument that he's the best goalkeeper in all of CONCACAF.
It's certainly he has that ability. Stead, how you feeling about tomorrow's game?
I can't say I am. It's as Losa said, we've seen this movie before, but a lot of it I think will depend on who starts tomorrow for Jamaica, and but I think at this point I think Jamaica probably feels that they're probably not in it anymore, and so you could see just some emotional, I'd say some bullets may not be firing, maybe it's not so much in the tank. So I expect a win from the US. I see a 1-0, sort of an early goal by the US, and then it being a rather boring affair for the rest of the match. That I think that would also make more sense, considering that this is the second leg of the international break, and players should, especially the number of players who've already gotten red cards and yellow cards and stuff, it could be, let's try to get out of here relatively unscathed. They can get an early goal, especially something fluky that sort of bounces in, and then they're just going, okay, we got one, and let's just stand back and make sure we don't do anything stupid and just try to get out of it as quickly as possible.
We have seen what starts to develop. We have seen some separation develop now between the top 4 teams in the USA, Mexico, Canada, and Panama from the rest. There's 5 points now separating Costa Rica in 5th place from Panama, who are in 4th place and in the transfer position where they would have to play the playoff. Right. Certainly a win in this round of fixtures to come out of this group. If I told you 6 points coming out of this window, I think everybody would have been jumping for joy. If I had told you 4 points coming out of this window, I think we'd all been happy. But is this now because of the result against Mexico, almost a little bit of a must win, right? An opportunity to put your stamp, put your authorities, take, let's be honest, a very, very, very massive step to assuring yourself qualification for the 2022 World Cup with only, I believe, 2 more rounds of fixtures, the March and the summer one. And then seeing as how our last window requires us to play Costa Rica and travel to Azteca, you'd like to have that done. So Rob, would you put this in that realm of almost a must win for us?
Yeah. Considering that you drop points at home before in these qualifiers, to get 3 points in a road anywhere, is crucial, and it's so helpful because it kind of mitigates, because when you qualify, you could qualify by winning your home games and like kind of like doing okay in your road games. So if you get 3 points here, it definitely makes things a lot easier come January, February, which one of the matches will be versus Canada in what looks like will be Vancouver. And it's not going to be pretty up there. It will be insanely cold, probably. So you got to take advantage here of getting 3 points because you might not get 3 points up there. You might not get three more points anywhere on the road, for all you know, because the second window you got Mexico and Costa Rica on the road, like you mentioned, and there's a chance that you're not going to get any points there either. So you got to get 3 points here. This is really, really crucial here, and if you do, they could go into the the end of the year breathing a sigh of relief and kind of feeling confident about themselves coming up for the next 5 games.
All right, so we're going to end this discussion with this one, and I'll go around the horn and start with Los. The USA wins tomorrow if. So Los, the US wins tomorrow if what? And
US
please
wins-
don't just say they score more goals.
Well, if they score more goals.
Yes.
No, the USA wins tomorrow if they don't have a celebratory hangover from the Mexico game, which could happen. It was a big win. I mean, it was a huge win, and it wasn't even a foregone conclusion that we were going to win until late in the game. So everyone's still, still on the edge of the seat, like Chelsea Mike was saying. They're, biting their nails, waiting to see what's going to happen, and hoping that we can get a goal and win this thing. Well, we did that. So now, will they still show up tomorrow? That same team with the same fire, or are they going to be in the hangover state where the lethargic and, well, we just won this big match and we had to travel, and are they, what team's going to show up? Are they going to be in any sort of proper mental state to go ahead and win this thing? So we've got talent, we got the ability. On paper, we should beat these guys, but they don't play the games on paper. So.
No, they play them in little boxes that we call TVs.
Oh yeah, they do. It's a little. Mine's a little bigger box than the one I had back in high school. Little portable. Had a little handle. Take it with you to the stadium. But yeah, that's what they got. They gotta show up. If they stay on the bus, then Jamaica will take it to them, and the Jamaica claims the 3 points. And we could have, woulda, coulda, shoulda. We just got to get it done.
Mike, the USA wins tomorrow if.
Along the same lines of Los, I'll say USA wins tomorrow if their heads aren't already back at their clubs, having beaten Mexico. I disagree. I disagree a little bit with Rob. I don't think tomorrow's must win. I do think that we'd all have been thrilled with 4 points coming out of these 2 games, and it doesn't matter which order they come in. In fact, it's even more rewarding if we beat Mexico and then take the 4 that we expected. I could see tomorrow's game being a let-off. I could see tomorrow's game ending 1-1 or 2-2. Again, Pulisic is working on his rehab so that he can get back into Chelsea. Everybody flying to Europe is already thinking about their teams. It's do they show up and do they put in 100% effort? I think it also matters a lot if Jamaica has decided that they're and they're professionals, and I'm sure they'll play for pride, but if they don't think that it's attainable anymore, that's where it could get ugly, and the US could just roll them over. But I don't see that happening. I see it being closer. I'd love a 2-1 win. For some reason, I just think we're going to concede a goal. I hope it's not 1-1. I'm hoping for 2-1.
All right. Rob, the US wins tomorrow if
The US wins tomorrow if Jamaica insists on pressing, because I don't think they have the players to press well. If they even try to press the US, I think the US has played from the back long enough, and they have a keeper who is trained who has one of the best managers in possession in Zach Steffen. And he's starting. So if Jamaica insists on we're gonna really force the game and press, I think the US it's gonna chop them up. I think Jamaica's best bet is if they really play the really defensive game and try to go for a counter. They got one of the best wingers that they've ever had in Leon Bailey. He's really, really shifty, really fast. And he definitely could put the ball back in the net. So I think that's the strategy. And the US really got to make sure not to, to really pretty much play their game. They're gonna have to find the channels. They're gonna have to be really shifty in the passing, in the 1-2 touches, because there's not gonna be much space there in the Jamaican half. So, but if Jamaica insists on spreading themselves out, then the US will win comfortably.
All right. Last but not least, amongst our panel, Stead, the US wins tomorrow if
they capitalize on I anticipate Jamaica making a couple of mistakes. If they capitalize on those mistakes and just, I think, keep their defense relatively compact. I mean, Jamaica does have speed. I mean, that goes without saying. If they can keep themselves relatively compact and not give anything over the top. And I think this kind of goes around with Rob was saying about the pressing line and counter, and they can keep the ball in front of them. And I think as the game goes on, they will control a bit more possession. I think they'll win if they do that.
I think that they have to remain organized and execute the game plan that I expect them to have. Now, that presupposes that they come in with a game plan. One of the great failings of 2017 was the fact that they planned so heavily to beat Panama in Florida, but then forgot that there was a game that followed up against Trinidad. Right. I knew that game was lost when the players had to be carried onto the pitch to avoid getting their feet wet. Right. And then afterwards, when it all went wrong and the first Trinidadian goal went in, they did not have any idea of what to do. Everybody just kind of sort of collectively panicked and started playing and trying to do too much. There wasn't any organization, there was no plan, and it was too late for Bruce Arena to come up with something to counter, right? So if they go out and they play their game, expect Jamaica to try and press, and don't be frightened when it comes. Just stay within you, play your game, see your open man, play the game that they expect to play. I'm with Mike. I do believe they likely will concede a goal. If they happen to concede the first goal, don't start chasing the game. Just expect that you can work your way back into it, and don't let it get to a point where you start making mental errors and overcommitting and leaving yourself open chasing a game. We've seen so many times where teams start chasing, and as a result, they make additional mistakes. So hopefully when we talk next Monday, we will be talking about another American victory and feeling a little bit more confident about qualification. All right, gentlemen. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for this evening. And I want to say a big thanks to the Celtic Cam for coming on and talking about the UEFA with us. Los and Gato for joining, talking about Spain and the U.S. men's national team. Chelsea Mike celebrating Christian Pulisic, and Rob helping us celebrate our 50th show in style. And of course,
Number 50.
yes, and of course, producer extraordinaire Stead. So, for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week, and we will try and do better next week.